Hello, Laura back with a Learning Objective 4 question from L6M2. And yes, Learning Objective 4 is a tricky learning objective with a lot of finance that students just go, no, I don't want to learn that. Well, we're going to look at a question for you today. Evaluate a range of approaches that a procurement department could use to assist in the effective funding of working capital. So let's be clear, it's asking you to evaluate, so we want the pros and cons. It's also mentioned a procurement department, so that's the context that you have to link everything back to. So you can't just talk about generic financial things without saying how procurement could help with that, to be clear. And also we're talking about working capital. So the first thing we need to do in any question is to define. And here we define working capital. So working capital represents money being used to run or potentially even start the business on a short-term basis. Or if you want the calculation, working capital equals your current assets less your current liabilities. And having enough working capital means that the company should be able to pay for all its short-term expenses and liabilities, so the business can run on a day-to-day basis. Okay, so let's drill into 5 separate areas that procurement could assist in creating greater working capital. And the first one, and really the major one that we can make a huge difference with, is inventory or stock holding. So a company can have assets such as premises, cars, etc., but be short of liquidity if these assets cannot be converted into cash quickly. You may have heard the term asset rich, cash poor. That's what fits here. Effective use of stock control would be a benefit to working capital with a reduction of stock and inventories held. So in other words, guys, all of our money isn't going to be tied up in stock that may be sat on our shelves not selling. So making sure that you're working to something like JIT, just in time, or holding less inventory can actually free up a lot of working capital for the organization. But this question said evaluate. So we've got to say some problems with this as well. And there are risks associated with JIT stock deliveries. So if you're working just in time and the goods don't come on time, then that means you are left basically without anything and production can stop. Again, it's always important to link back to an organization of your choice. So if you can talk about your own organization, then do it. If it was me, I'd kind of talk about Amazon and their levels of inventory and so on, just because I don't hold stock in that same way. So that's inventory. The next area that we can make a huge difference in effective working capital is negotiation of payment terms. So this would improve cash flow and aid the running of the business on a short-term basis. So if we are going to be paying in a longer period, so we're paying, say, in 90 days and we get paid in 30, then it aids our cash flow, our working capital. Procurement will be a prime mover in dealing with suppliers and negotiating an increase in settlement terms. Issues, though, with doing this is that it could impact your reputation. So if you're not paying in 90 or 120 days and so on, there may be some kind of alienation of suppliers and frustration with them because they also have to manage their working capital. So it creates that uneven balance. And obviously, settlement of creditors before receipt of debtors is not a formula for cash flow surplus. So if you're paying out before you get paid in, that can create an issue. Once again, link this back to your own organization or an organization of your choice. The next area, and I've put specification, but essentially it's a lot more than that, but I couldn't fit it in. In keeping with making the product faster and selling the product more quickly, procurement can look closely at raw material or product specs to ensure production runs more efficiently. My second favourite CIPS quote is by Emmett, and it's make it faster, move it faster, get paid faster. So that's what I'm talking about here. Thus, production of finished goods and sale of item will be quicker, resulting in a fast turnaround of cash. And also, if you get the spec right up front, getting it right first time means money's not tied up in rework or work in progress and so on as you're having to fix the problems that's been created. So again, remember, link this back to an organization of your choice or your own organization. The next area we can help with effective working capital is lease or buy. So procurement can take an input in the lease or buy decision. And we can assist in the management of working capital with the use of leasing instead of outright purchase of these fixed assets. So because we're not purchasing it outright, we have that cash flow from the leasing. We know what we're going to pay every month. And this aids our working capital, the day-to-day cash in our business. Sale and leaseback of major assets also assists in the effective financing of working capital. And this is something which Tesco Supermarket has done. If you look in Vegas, for example, MGM Group have done a sale and leaseback of their major property like Bellagio. So it gets them a lot of cash flow, a lot of working capital to deal with while they essentially are still running it. But it helps them pay off those short-term debts. And the fifth and final area, and there are other things that you could talk about. You could talk about negotiation on price and so on to pay less, but I chose this one, supplier financial checks or audits. So failure to supply by our suppliers or them entering into liquidation, going insolvent, can have a drastic effect on our working capital. If we can ensure supplier financial due diligence, like credit checks, the use of credit agencies like Dun & Bradstreet, speaking to other companies or buyers who use the suppliers, doing site visits, looking at financial audits of financial ratios and so on. All of this can ensure that our suppliers that we are using are financially stable and therefore won't be chasing early payment, won't go bust and then cost us more money to source from elsewhere and so on and so on. So all of this manages our risk and therefore ensures that we have greater working capital. So those are 5 areas. As I said, there are others that you could talk about, such as negotiation. You could even talk about how we could work with finance to engage in invoice factoring or work with finance to set more rules with our suppliers and so on. But these are the ones that we can really get involved in more. So I thought that these were some of the stronger answers. Hope you found this useful. Thanks so much for listening. Catch me back for another constructive response exam answer soon. Bye for now.